This is UMAR for IFL TV in association with MTK Global. Privileged via Zoom to be joined by former WBO middleweight champion of the world, one of Ireland's very finest, Andy Lee. Thanks for joining me today, Andy. How are you holding up?
All good, UMAR, all good. Lockdown slightly easing here in Ireland now, and getting a little bit of freedom back and getting out to the park with my daughter and wife and things like that. So yeah, it's light at the end of the tunnel kind of thing.
It's good to hear. So, is that what's changed in Ireland, that you can go to the park? That's what's happened in the UK.
No, you could always get out like for an exercise within 2 kilometers. Now they've extended it to 5 kilometers, but more shops are opening and different things like that, you know. And so we're in reach of a beach where we live, so we go to the beach or to the park, and yeah, it's just you're getting back to normal. Starting to see people. You're allowed to meet people at a distance, you know. So it's grand.
Well, obviously, I think it's going to be a while till boxing's back. I think in the US it's going to be June. Let's talk about the US. First question: what was more memorable, Andy? That night in Vegas where you won the world title against Barnhoff, or that night in Vegas 3 months ago where you helped Tyson Fury in one of the most historic heavyweight nights in recent history?
Yeah, they're both separate. And one is my own career, which seems like a long time ago now when I won the world title, and the one with Tyson was a different career as a coach. It's a different achievement, but the feeling, it's not too dissimilar. You know, huge satisfaction and huge joy really. You know, and but even saying that, you know, it was only February. It does seem like a long time ago because a lot's happened since then. And it's mad. I think that we're only, you know, the world's changed so much in such a short time, and the prospect of whenever boxing, when we can be in that type of situation again, seems like a long time off.
Looking back, we're lucky we got that fight in, to be fair.
Yeah, I said that to Tyson as soon as the lockdown came. I said, you kind of, you know, it was a perfect time for him because got the win, goes out on a high, and he's still carrying that high, you know. So yeah, it was nice that he got it right in.
There's been a lot of talk, Andy, during this lockdown. We're all bored whether Wilder and Pulev are going to step aside. From what it looks like, that isn't going to be the case. Saw some comments this week that the trilogy could go to China at the end of the year. Thoughts on that, Andy?
Yeah, I think the fight everyone would love to see is Tyson versus Joshua, but there's, you know, unfinished business, and I think Tyson himself has no preference on who he fights and thinks he probably wants to do a job on Wilder as well, like finish it off, really show it that last result wasn't a fluke, or that, you know, Wilder, whatever the excuses with the suit and all things like that, maybe he wasn't right, had an injury, or had some rumors about that, but yeah, and it only builds that fight if they both win. And I think probably Joshua needs another win anyway. You know, he lost to Ruiz, came back, won the second fight, and made a huge adjustment, and it was a big improvement. But I'm not sure how that style of boxing and moving can work against Tyson. So I think he still needs to find some sort of medium between the two styles. He's an old style, which is kind of a finisher and a box puncher, now to being a boxer. And practicing it on somebody like Pulev, who's tall, similar stature to Tyson, would be a good move for him. And then it only builds the fight eventually. If Tyson beats Wilder and he beats Pulev, then, you know, it's all set for the biggest fight in history.
Yeah, I'll get a further breakdown from you later on in terms of the Fury-Joshua fight. But let's talk about Deontay Wilder. You mentioned the post-fight comments, which confused a lot of people, let's say. Do you think Tyson's mentally broken him, Andy?
I think there's some issues, to some point he has, maybe. I think it was, in some ways you would say it's not a good look for Wilder to come out and make excuses, especially, you know, when you've been beaten like that. But in some ways, as a coach, I can understand, because a fighter, he still has that champion mindset, and he wants to find some excuse to just not admit that he was beaten by the better man. And so I do, like, when I do watch the fight back, he did kind of unravel very, very easily, you know. So maybe there were some issues there, and I certainly expect him to come back better if there is a third fight. But yeah, I think Tyson is mentally, yeah, like just being around him. Like look at all the fights Tyson's had. He's always been able to dominate the person mentally. Even Klitschko, Chisora is one of the most controversial people, even at that stage. Maybe not so much now, but back then, you know, he's the only guy who spit into Klitschko's face. He slapped the other brother at the weigh-in, and no one could get over him. You know, even David Haye couldn't handle him. But when he was fighting Tyson Fury, he was, you know, he was as friendly as could be, and that was mainly down to Tyson's. I don't know what he has or what way he goes about it. Because sometimes, even with Wilder, when Tyson was aggressive, Wilder was aggressive in terms of the back and forth and press conferences and things like that. And then when Tyson wanted to be nice, Wilder was nice. And I said that to Tyson. He said, "Yeah, I'm playing him." He said, "I got him on a string." He said, "I'm just playing him." So Tyson knows how to do it. I think he's the best I've ever seen.
When he came to the Kronk gym, what was he like mentally then, and as a character? Was he the same as now?
Yeah, full of confidence, and you know, as you know, larger than life, and everyone. And I think he was relishing the challenge of coming into the Kronk gym, similar to what I did, and dominating there. And he did. He within the space of a week, all the big guys who used to come down there and train, work out, they stopped showing up because they knew he was in town, and they waited till he left before they came back again. And so yeah, but like what I see from him now on a personal level, he's matured a lot. He's a lot more steady in terms of his emotions up and down. Like even then, within then, he'd be talking about, you know, I'm useless. Anyone could beat me. I could get beat tomorrow. And then an hour later, he'd be saying I'm the best heavyweight ever. You know, and I've seen that in his career, that he'd be up and down with his perception of himself. But now I see a confident, a lot stronger mentally, and that's testament to all that he's been through, I guess.
Well, probably the strongest mentally he's ever had to be in a moment was probably the Klitschko Sauna story, and I know you were there, Andy.
Yeah.
What do you recollect from that story?
Yeah, that story is just growing and growing and growing, and it is true. You know, I saw Vladimir come out and say that it wasn't it wasn't all that, but it really was. I think it was, and probably Vladimir won't be too happy with me saying that, even because we asked our good friends. It was like an unsaid competition. You know, it wasn't spoken. There was nothing going on there. But neither man wanted to step out of their sauna, and every Wednesday Vladimir would have a sauna, and he makes his sauna so hot no one would stick it. So all the people who were in the hotel where the camper would be in there. Then because Vladimir was in there, they knew what time he'd be in there. They wanted to see the champ. So we were just happened to be sitting there, me and Tyson, all these people coming to see Vladimir. And by one, everyone starts training out because Vladimir just keeps pouring on water. And it boils down to me, Tyson, and Vladimir. And like after whatever it was, I had to get out. It was just unbearable heat. And I get outside the sauna, sitting around, waiting around, cooling down. And I don't see any sign of either of them. And I say, what are they doing? What's going on in there? You know, and I'm listening outside the door. There's not a word being said. And after eventually Vladimir comes out and he's like bawling, he's raging, he's steaming. And for a short while later, Tyson comes out and says, "Yes, I got him. I did him." And yeah, that might have been the first little battle, you know, that was won in many battles in terms of the build up to their eventual fight.
Andy, of course, you caused the link between Sugarhill and Tyson Fury for this Wilder rematch. I'm sure you would have had a lot of trainers in mind, and obviously you know a lot of trainers, and so does Tyson. Your decision to bring Sugarhill in was validated on February 22nd. But why, looking back, why him?
Because I know what he teaches. I know they worked together while Tyson was in Detroit in Austria. Sugarhill's a unique personality. And the personality is as much as the style of training is just as important, you know. And I knew Sugarhill would be willing to work. And at the time, Ben Davison was still involved. So Sugarhill said, "Look, I'm happy to work with him. We'll work together." But I know what he teaches. He teaches balance. He teaches basics. And he teaches like correct punching And like when I trained exclusively with Sugarhill, I've always felt very, very strong, very, very dominant, and a lot of things that are not that evident, like when you walk, or clear to see when you're outside the ring, but when you're inside the ring in terms of positioning and moving an opponent, which we saw Tyson do to Wilder when he had like little steps to Tyson's right so that Wilder would steps to Tyson's left so that Wilder would move to the right. Just small ways of maneuvering on when to punch, and using a strong lead hand, and yeah, all those things I thought would be really, really good against Wilder, but also for Tyson against any opponent.
We know you're working with some talented fighters, the likes of Paddy Donovan. Do you feel proud now you can instill that Kronk attitude going forward into fighters that you train?
Yeah, and I think, well, I've always had that start. I've always like had an emphasis on the knockout. Like as a fighter, I would always want that, and as a coach, I always wanted that. And I'm selective with who I work with, because when I was fighting, I knew how much of my coach's time I wanted. You know, I mightn't have always got it, but I knew I wanted to be there. I wanted the coach to be there with me every day. I wanted to be his sole focus when we were working together. And with Emanuel, that might not have always been the case. But even with Adam, that might not have always been the case when he had the other fighters, you know, David Hay, George Groves, and all those other guys. So when I'm coaching now, I knew if I was going to do it, then I'd have to give my fighters the correct time, you know, the right time. And it is all consuming when you're in training and you're working with these boxers. You have to not only think about what you're doing in the gym, but think about it outside the gym. You have to analyze it and try to see where they can improve and where you can structure your training so that they can improve. So, but in terms of, I'll bring the Kronk style, but also lean heavily on the things I learned from Adam Booth. Like I learned a lot from Adam Booth, certainly. It was the making of me. I had that Kronk foundation. I had Emanuel's teaching. I had all that experience in traveling and training with Emanuel and sparring different fighters. But Adam definitely finished the job off. And I learned just as much from Adam as I did Emanuel. So blending those two styles together and try to put in my own little bit, somewhere in between, find an identity, you know. So yeah, it was great. And Paddy was out in the camp with Tyson. It was a great experience for him. I think you might have met him out there. And Jason Quigley is the only other fighter I train, and he's improving hugely. And hopefully he can get this fight, which was due to be on before the lockdown, with Jack Cullen. So to get that fight on and then step up again, maybe fight, I don't know, John Ryder, somebody at that, and then somebody at that level, and the next fight from Jason then will be a world title fight.
Is he still with Golden Boy, Jason?
He's with Golden Boy, yeah, and he's got a management company, Sheer Sports, based in California. So it's a little bit logistically, it's a little bit up in the air. He lives in Ireland now, and we train in Dublin, but he's still got his management and promotion on the West Coast, and which I've been actively trying to get him fighting in England, or at least on the East Coast of America. So. And they've been agreeable with that, and we were trying to get those things to happen before lockdown came about, you know.
Back to the Kronk gym. What was it like being around Emanuel Steward day to day?
It's hard to surmise in you know in a few words, because we were together all that length of time, you know. But it was an unbelievable experience for a young lad from Limerick, County Limerick, Ireland, to move to Detroit and train the Kronk gym and live with Emanuel in his house. It was unbelievable, you know. And I was living there, even like after 4 or 5 years of living there, I'd still pinch myself. Like he'd be in his bedroom, I'd be in my bedroom, across the hall from each other. He'd be talking on his phone. He'd say, "Andy, that was whoever, you know." So, like whoever you can think of, Bob Arum, Don King, or whoever, you know. And he just taught, and I said, "That's Emanuel Steward." And he's telling me, you know, it's just, I still pinch myself, even after all that time. So I never lost that reverence for him, and I think he appreciated that. And I was there with him up until the last few days, you know, before he died. So I was very fortunate to spend those years with him, and I learned a lot, just not about boxing, but also about life and how to conduct yourself as a human being. From Emanuel, yeah.
Well, of course, he prophesied that Wilder and Fury would be the ones standing in this heavyweight division, and felt like his aura was over that fight and that whole camp in Las Vegas, if you like. where Sugarhill was carrying on that legacy, and obviously as his own man. How long, or did you see Tyson and Sugarhill? Like, do you see that it now for Tyson in terms of trainers?
I think Tyson's very happy, and that's what he's expressed to us, that he wants to continue on this way. But you never know which way. And I wouldn't be surprised if Ben Davison did come back into the picture at some stage, because I know they still have a good relationship, and I would welcome that, because even before he departed the team, I thought I was actually looking forward to going there, working with Sugarhill and working with Ben Davison, and learning from them both, you know. But yeah, I think really we only had 8 weeks of training, actual like training. We worked every day, working extremely hard, and I think Tyson did more boxing training for this camp than he ever did, in terms of, we did a punching session in the morning, a punching session in the afternoon, where he'd done like the bulk of his conditioning before we actually started training. So I think we're only just really scratching the surface, and that he's going to improve. He's going to improve, and I think people will be surprised, even the next fight, how much he's improved.
Have you spoken to Sugarhill much during this lockdown, Andy?
Yeah, speaking to him regularly. Last time I spoke to him, he was in Florida training some other fighters, some Russians, who Sugarhill has very close relationships with Dmitry Salita, who's former fighter, now turned promoter, and signs a lot of Russian fighters, so they work together very closely. And he's keeping well, yeah, and he's eager for the next fight, and he was hoping it would have been July, but we're all just waiting now for the word.
Well,
but if it's China would be great. Who knows, you know? But I've got a baby girl. I got one on the way any day now, so I'll have to smooth it over with the wife.
Talking about Dimitri, of course, it was you, Tyson, and Dimitri all stood out in the Krong gym a bit. The only 3 white guys in the whole gym.
And Emanuel, like, that was back then, and like Emanuel said to Sugarhill and me, he said, keep your eye on Dimitri. He said, he's going to be a big player in boxing one day. And he said to Sugarhill, stay close to him, you know, stay close to him, because he's going to be a big player. And that was back then. Dimitri was still fighting, and Emanuel, whatever Emanuel saw in Dimitri, seems to be coming true.
Yeah, he got everything right, it seems. Let's talk about Anthony Joshua. You mentioned him at the start. So going back to the first Wilder fight, where of course Tyson got dropped heavily, and came back in that round and completely dominated him, which is a scary thought. And then he kind of carried that on in the second fight. He just picked off where he left off. Obviously made a lot of adjustments with yourself and Sugarhill, but he carried that dominance on. But it seemed like when he read the pattern of Wilder, he could imprint that game plan. Same with Derek Chisora in the rematch. Once he sort of read the patterns of a fighter and got used to them, you know, his game goes up another level. Do you think after 2 or 3 rounds or 4 rounds, let's say, against Anthony Joshua, when he kind of reads his style and pattern, that he's going to cause Anthony the most problems, let's say?
Yeah, I don't think, like, I think in Joshua, Tyson's faced somebody like similar to him in terms of fighting Klitschko, but I don't think Joshua's fought anybody like Tyson, who can be so tricky, can fight so southpaw or orthodox, and so big physically as well. It's still an intriguing fight, because Joshua still has that punch power, you know, that can switch the lights off. So Tyson will still have to be somewhat, I think, early he does in the fight, will still have to be somewhat careful. But again, Tyson's just so physically and mentally dominant. I think it just has so much ability for a big man. Like it's not like, it's just when you're watching him and when you're in training camp with him, you just become so used to seeing it, what he's capable of doing. But you have to remind yourself that this man is 6'8", 6'9", and he weighs that much, 270 pounds. It's not normal for him to be able to move like this, to be able to throw these combinations and switch and pivot and come back again with more punches. Like, his coordination for a man of that size is not something I've seen before. And yeah, I just think there's many, like, Tyson has a lot of different approaches now. He's added this is a separate style which is added, which is like educated pressure, being dominant, and being imposing and punching really correctly and hard. But he also, even within that training camp we had for a while, some days he would go back to where he was on the ropes, slipping and sliding, and he's very effective, defensively. Like Tyson has the ability to fight with a lead low, like his lead hand low, but he'll keep his, like a lot of fighters who fight with a lead hand low, whether it be southpaw or orthodox, they tend to keep their weight on their front foot because their lead hand is low. That inevitably brings their head closer to their opponent, and so they're not defensively as good. But Tyson has that ability, and it's something that I've seen like Peter Fury's fighters do. They fight with low lead front hand, but they're always on their back foot, so they're very awkward and very defensively good. So Tyson has that ability, and one way I can see Tyson has a lot more ways of fighting Joshua than Joshua has, because Joshua, if he tries to adapt the style that he beat Ruiz with, boxing and moving, I can't see that being successful against Tyson. He's going to have to be aggressive, and that will give Tyson opportunities.
I know you're his cousin, and now you are officially part of Team Fury, but just stepping aside, say you're an analyst breaking this fight down, with that Kronk attitude instilled with Tyson now, going into that Joshua fight, let's say next year, if you had to give like a last final prediction, would you say it's a stoppage, a points win? And if it is a stoppage, what round? And
no, I think two big men like that. I kind of brazenly said on Sky Sports last week that Tyson was stopping him in 8 rounds. But look, with two big men like that, one punch can end the fight at any time. We've seen that, we've seen that with Joshua, we've seen that with Wilder doing it to many guys, even when he's been behind. So I don't think you can fully confidently predict a fight against two big punching heavyweights. But all that aside, I think Tyson will break him down first mentally and then physically, and maybe stop him late. But it's definitely the biggest fight out there, and I think them both having a fight in between will build it even more, make it more exciting.
Of course, we've seen him move his career to United States of America, where fighters from the UK, Ireland, everywhere really are desperate to go there. You were privileged enough to base the best part of your career in the States. When you look back at that now, you kind of realise or you're grateful for it that you cracked it in the States, Andy.
Yeah, and like the average journeyman or like club fighter in England, in America, will beat some of the best fighters in England. I don't want to be disrespectful, but we've seen it. Like, to go to America and to be able to hold up, it takes a very, very good fighter. Like we've seen it several times. We've seen it with Anthony Joshua. He got into America and he lost his first fight. There. But it takes a good fighter to go to America and hold up. And yeah, though the experiences I've had there, knowing the places intimately, for me, it's nothing new, to go there. And I think that's some ways part of the part. Like some ways it's an illusion, because fighters from here, from our side of the world, think that, well, what's it like in America? What are they doing there? It's the unknown. So when you get there, it's a little bit, you're uncertain. But I think the way Tyson's gone over there, and we were there together in Vegas the whole time, and everywhere we went, people on the street, it wasn't just boxing fans. He's a household name there now. Everywhere we went, literally, people were stopping him for photographs. People who don't even watch boxing. So he's definitely crossed over.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say him and Canelo really in the States right now are the two biggest attractions.
Certainly.
In terms of your career over there, obviously the American fight fans love a knockout. We know that. What was your favourite one? For me, it was the John Jackson one.
Jackson was sweet, yeah. Early in my career, I knocked out Carl Daniels, who was a former world champion. It was on St. Patrick's Eve, the day before, in the Garden. So, and it wasn't a fight. I was having it all my own way, and I knocked him out with one punch in the third round. But there was some, I've had some knockouts that I don't even think are on tape, or on video anyway, because I literally was fighting everywhere, nearly every week, every couple of weeks, in off-the-wall places like the New Daisy Theater in Memphis, and I fought in Miami, Oklahoma. I basically fought all over the States and off the wall. So some of those fights, they're not available to see, but yeah, the Jackson one was sweet. The Karlov one was good. Yeah, it was good. It was good. I had a great career. I had a long, long time in America. I had a great career. I unfortunately lost to Chavez, But then to have that comeback, you know, with Adam, the resurgence, and like rededicating myself in terms of learning new skills I didn't have, and working more on my weaknesses than my strengths. That's what me and Adam really did. And to come back and to have those, even when it didn't look like it was going to happen, but I got the Jackson fight and nothing was really happening. Then out of the blue, got the Carabao fight, and then it all just kind of clicked in. Yeah.
I think it was Roy Jones on commentary who said on the John Jackson fight, the knockout was like Marquez's of Pacquiao.
Yeah. Yeah. And that even to have Roy Jones commentating, like, he was my favorite fighter growing up. So, and get to know him over that time, you know. So yeah, it was good. Yeah, and like, yeah, I had a great string of knockouts at the time. And yeah, look, it seems like a lifetime ago. Like, I don't. Well, for the last few weeks, I've been going to the gym now nearly every day, working a little bit on myself, but just so I can familiarize myself with it for my fighters, you know, so that I can understand the mistakes they're making and help them improve, you know, and realize what they're doing wrong and how to correct it.
I'm glad you said that at the end, because at the start I thought you was making a comeback, Andy, like
No.
Holyfield and all the rest of them.
Trust me. And I don't see this all this talk about Mike Tyson coming back, and I hope they don't. I really hope they don't. You know, I think if they were to have a little charity fight, him and Holyfield, you know, or an exhibition, it'd be nice for 3 rounds maybe, but that's about it. I don't want to see any of those guys competing.
I do agree with you on that one. What was tougher to take, Andy, the Chavez loss or the one to Billy Joe?
Both. Both. Crushing. No, the Chavez one, I lost to Brian Vera. That was soul destroying. Wasn't a fight I was meant to lose. It was really hard to take.
Career, Andy?
That was like my 16th fight. Yeah. But he did beat me. But I avenged the defeat. The Chavez fight for me, and I don't know. It's hard. I don't want to be like making excuses or, you know, half the time. But it wasn't fought on a level playing field. And Chavez has been proven now to be a drug cheat, and all of the other little things that go on. So when I lost, I was like, to be honest, I was like, fuck it. If they wanted that much, if they're willing to go to this length to win, then fuck it, they can keep it. And I just wanted to get out of there. I was in El Paso in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by like like the week before we arrived, there was 7 heads put on over, like people that got their heads cut off and put on the spikes over the freeway, some cartel business. So I just wanted to get out of there. Billy Joe loss was very hard. It was hard. I would have loved to have a rematch. But Billy Joe has proven to be a really, really good fighter. And to me, he's probably the only guy who's got a good chance of beating Canelo. And we got a chance to spar, me and Billy Joe, after we'd fought. And even then, I could see how good he was. Yeah. It wasn't like, in some ways it didn't make the loss easier, but I felt like, this actually wasn't down to me. Even though I felt I hadn't boxed my best early in the fight. He won the fight, and he did, like, that's it now, it's done. It was a close fight. I felt it could have been a draw, but you're not gonna, like, when you have 2 knockdowns, it's very hard to come back and win a fight. So yeah, he's gone on now, he's still champ, and hopefully he keeps going.
Just rounding off the interview, of course, talking about Billy Joe, yourself, Tyson Fury, you guys have done wonders for young traveller boxers coming up, and seeing some really good ones coming through. Of course, you've got Paddy, Dennis McCann. I don't know if you've seen much of him. Willie Hutchins. You watch these guys?
Yeah, I watched them all. Yeah, Hobie Price. There's lots coming through. I think I just happened to have been at like 4 or 5 of Dennis's fights, and he's a really exciting young prospect. He's only a young kid, but it'll be exciting to see how far he goes. And Willie, he's kind of reminds me of George Groves almost. He's looks like a spiteful puncher, you know, with that Ingle style as well. It'll be slightly different, but he has a very good jab. Hobie Price, a very talented southpaw. Frankham as well, Charles Frankham. There's lots and lots. I'm probably missing out loads with Paddy. To me, I don't want to compare them, but Paddy is sensational as well. Paddy, the only reason I got back into boxing, the only reason I'm ended up training Tyson Fury, and the only reason we're talking here is because I got back into boxing, and it was Paddy that got me back into it because he's just sensational talent. And I think if he can, there are so many things, variables that can happen in someone's life, especially when they're young, that can like take them away from boxing or them not end up making it or going all the way. But if Paddy can keep his feet on the ground, keep his head on his shoulders, with the talent he has, keeps working hard, he's got all the ingredients to be a champion. So very excited for him. And yeah, like for travelers and gypsies, growing up, becoming a professional boxer was never something that really happened. You know, you box when you're younger, yeah, you're winning everything, but once you get to 17, even before then, you give it up because you go to work, you leave school, you go to work, you start working, you get married young, and boxing is, you know, it's not sustainable. But now with me, Tyson, and Billy Joe doing so well, these young travelers and gypsies they can see there's a different way of life, and there's this different outlet out there. So if they work hard and dedicate themselves, because they all have talent, they can go and have a different life for themselves.
Well, a lot of that is, as I said, down to yourself, Billy Joe and Tyson Fury. Anyways, Andy Lee, thank you very much for talking to IFL TV.
Thank you, UMAR. Yeah, thank you for having me on. Great to be on the channel.
Possibly see you in Australia or China at the end of the year.
Who knows?
All right, Andy, thank you very much.
Cheers, UMAR. All the best, man. Thanks for the call.